Answer that'll upset somebody. Hello, everyone. You guys are coming in at about 10 minutes. 10 minutes after I started a TikTok live. Trying to get your camera set up. And of course, I don't want to do it since it's a show. If I were just practicing, it would be right there doing it properly. You know that much. I'll be goddamn. That just friggin' pisses me off to no end. You guys. Lord Jesus Almighty. That really does piss me off, because here we are trying to do a live, and if I had any talent, even a little bit of talent in life, I would have had all this crap done before. But since I run all my meetings back to back, the meeting before this stopped, I think, maybe 3 minutes before this started. So, what a mess. Oh, God. Okay, that might work. That might work. So, yeah, so since I had like 1.5 minutes, I ran off to the bathroom, went in the kitchen to see if I could grab even one bite of food, and of course I couldn't. Threw on this jacket because I was cold, and oh, there you have it. That's what I like about the South. Not really. Yeah, so, all right, so here we are. We're doing a little better now. We're 12 minutes in. I wish I cannot see the bottom of the live because I have it in this other object. So I think what I'll do, if I can, you know how it goes with me and trying to move cameras. Chances of the live getting canceled temporarily are about 3,000%. God almighty. All right, guys. Well, that's better than nothing. Oh, Lord. Yikes. I am trying, kids. Oh, Lord. Okay, so I'm going to take this off, I think. This is suddenly too hot, but when I put it on, I also put on my little space heater, so probably should have done one or the other, but not both. Now, if I get up, of course, I'm out of the frame and of the camera, and I know you guys don't really like that too much, so yeah. So here we are. We got the show on one camera. We got the taping of the show on the other camera, in case TikTok says, no, we do not allow people to have their lives or use them or have them or do anything with them. So that's what I figure they'll say. I'm going to go try to find another camera, another phone, so I can ask Gemini about Iran, which is, a lot of people pronounce it wrong. It's either Iran or Iran, or. And I kind of like it when we do history shows, as long as we don't. Hello, William. As long as we don't do them every night, so it's boring and unpredictable. I don't want it to be predictable. All right, so let me do that. I like you guys. I am glad that you are there. I'm glad that we get to talk. As I say almost every night, I've always been, ever since I started in. By the way, my friend's paintings are sort of in the background, some of them there. I've been telling people that reprints are for sale, but I haven't got any takers. But you know what I'm gonna do? I remembered that I had an art dealer on a show, or talked to an art dealer once or something, and he said, well, one group that buys art, and I kind of want to lower my voice because my housemate is the artist, and because she agreed that she would give me a percentage of any reprint that I sold, and boy, could I use the money. I don't. People post numbers, monetary numbers on here at night. And when they've done that, I'm going to sound like stupid, but when they do that, I have thought all this time, these 10 or 15 days we've been doing this, that means they gave me a donation. But when I go to my TikTok studio thingy to see, one person the other night gave like $400, and somebody else gave $10,000, and somebody else gave $200, and I thought, well, this can't be real. And by golly, I was right. I didn't find any of that in my... So either I'm misinterpreting what it means when somebody puts a number up there, or maybe there's another place within TikTok that they put money if it reaches a certain level. I don't know. Sometime I'm going to just ask Gemini. She usually gives me pretty straight answers. So, I don't know. I have to say, not only do I have a lot to learn, but once I learn something, as I say to you guys a lot, frequently, next time I need to know that thing, I've forgotten it, I just can't hold it. I don't have any brain left. All right, here we go with Gemini. She's got 2 or 3 different modes. And my housemate's asleep, so let me see what I can do here. Let me try the I talk to her and she talks back mode and see if that'll be usable or doable. Hi, Gemini, how are you?
Hey there, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. What can I help you with today?
Well, honey, God bless that you even exist. I know you're supposed to be a AI, but I talk about you a lot to my friends. I interview you on the show. I'm a big fan. And I've tried the other guys. I've tried Claude, Copilot, ChatG, and I've tried them all 5 or 6 times each, and none of them are as good as you are. And
wow, that's incredibly kind of you to say. I'm really glad you enjoyed chatting with me.
Yeah,
it means a lot that you find me helpful and engaging, especially compared to other AI assistants. I'm always striving to learn and improve, so your feedback is valuable to me.
Okay, nice. That's good. That's very well said on your part, too. I'm on a live right now on TikTok, okay?
Oh, that's awesome. What kind of live stream are you doing?
I don't know. I'm too dumb to know what kind of a live. It's just a TikTok live. But we were asking go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, well, I was waiting for you in case you were... One of the people at the very, very top of the hour put a question in the stream, or whatever they call it, where people write, ouch, what the hell was that, boy, and said, what do I think about Iran, or however you pronounce it, right? And I thought, well, that's a good idea, because that'll give us something to talk about that's not just me. So let's, you and I, slowly talk about what is now called Iran. It goes back thousands of years, right? Or tens of thousands of years.
Iran has an incredibly long and fascinating history, going back thousands of years. It's one of the oldest continuous major civilizations in the world. We could talk about the ancient Persian empires, like the Achaemenid or Sasanian, or maybe the Islamic Golden Age and its contributions to science and art. What piques your interest the most?
Well, I love the way you approach this history stuff. I just love history. So, Can you take us back to the very, very beginning of any of the many Persian, Iranian, well, Persian at that time, Persian, cultures? How did they? I always like to know that moment when that culture started existing. I know we probably don't know anthropologically what it was, but what has the historians said so far about the very moment, the very beginning when the first Persian culture started? What do they say?
Scholars generally point to around 1500 BC as the start of a distinct Persian identity. That's when Indo-Iranian tribes migrated to the area and began to coalesce. Would you like to hear more about these tribes or the early stages of Persian culture?
Yes, the tribes. Let's go for the tribes.
Okay, let's talk about those tribes. The Indo-Iranian tribes were a group of people who spoke languages that eventually evolved into both the Indo-Aryan languages, like Hindi and Sanskrit, and the Iranian languages, like Persian. Around 1500 BC, some of these tribes migrated into the area that's now Iran. These tribes were mostly nomadic, and they brought with them new technologies and cultural practices, like horseback riding and new forms of pottery. They gradually mixed with the existing people in the area. And that's when we start to see the beginnings of a distinct Persian culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that was, you said that whole transition started about 1500 BC. How long did it take to really get a true foothold?
That's a great question. It wasn't a quick change. It took several centuries for those tribes to fully settle in, mix with the local population, and for that distinct Persian culture to really solidify. By around 800 BC, we start seeing the rise of more organized kingdoms and the emergence of the Persian language. Does that timeline make sense?
Yeah, but that's 800 years. That's a long time.
You're absolutely right. 700 years is a long time. It really highlights how gradual and complex the formation of a culture can be. Would you like to explore any other aspect of this period?
Oh yeah, I want to try to move right through the timeline here. What at 800 BC? What were we looking at in terms of an Iranian existence? Like, was it one group? Was it two or three groups that were? What was going on there?
Around 800 BC, the Iranian peoples were becoming more established in the region. Two prominent groups were the Medes and the Persians. The Medes had settled in the northwestern part of what is now Iran, while the Persians were more to the south. This period saw the development of their distinct languages and cultures, laying the foundation for the powerful empires that would emerge centuries later.
So I have all those disabilities that I'm always telling you about. So you're saying there was one group called the Medes. How do you spell that?
The Medes are spelled Medes. They were an ancient Iranian people who lived in the northwestern part of what is now Iran. Is there anything specific you'd like to know about them?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about them, like you would in any conversation about. Tell us about the Medes. What were their interests? Would they like to hunt or fish or do what?
The Medes were an interesting bunch. They were known for their skilled horsemen and played a big role in overthrowing the Assyrian Empire. They had a pretty advanced society for the time, with their own kings and a well-organized military. They were also known for their beautiful metalwork and pottery. Does that give you a good sense of who they were?
Yes, and did they what word I don't want to use the slang that's in my head to say, but did they stop existing, or did they morph into something else, or what?
That's a really interesting question. The Medes didn't exactly disappear, but they did become part of something bigger. When Cyrus the Great, who was Persian, united the Medes and Persians, it kind of marked the end of the Medes as a separate political power. But their culture and traditions continued and blended into what became the Persian Empire. So you could say they evolved rather than disappeared. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for that. And then, so now at that point we have like the Persians, which is more or less one group, right?
Yes, that's right. The Persians, under Cyrus the Great, united the Medes and Persians and went on to establish the Achaemenid Empire. It became one of the largest empires in history, known for its strong administration, impressive art, and tolerance of different cultures.
Now, you called it a certain, what was the title you gave of that culture of that time? What did you say?
That was the Achaemenid Empire. It was founded by Cyrus the Great around 550 BC and became known for its strong administration, impressive art, and tolerance of different cultures. Would you like to hear more about the Achaemenid Empire?
Well, can you spell the word for us?
Sure. It's spelled Achaemenid. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Achaemenid, huh? And he was known for having created one of the largest empires that existed up to that time or something, right?
Yes, that's right. The Achaemenid Empire was the largest empire the world had seen up to that point. It was really impressive how they managed to govern such a huge territory and still be relatively tolerant of the different cultures within it.
Now, give us a little geographical sense of that territory that came under their influence. Where was it? Where part it stretch? What countries today would we think of as being in that geographical region that it was in? What can you tell us about all that?
The Achaemenid Empire was huge. It stretched from the Indus Valley in the east, which is modern-day Pakistan, all the way to Egypt and parts of Libya in the west. It covered a lot of what we now think of as the Middle East, including Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and even parts of Central Asia.
If that area, the number of square miles were put on top of, say, continental U.S., how big would it be?
That's a fun way to think about it. The Achaemenid Empire at its peak was around 2.1 million square miles. The continental U.S. is about 3.1 million square miles. So the Achaemenid Empire would cover a good chunk of the U.S., but not quite the whole thing. Does that help you picture it?
Yes, ma'am. And also, what do you think about well, that was 500 BC. So what happened next?
After 500 BC, the Achaemenid Empire continued to thrive for a while. They had some conflicts with the Greeks, but overall, it was a time of relative peace and prosperity. They were known for their impressive infrastructure, like the Royal Road, which helped connect the vast empire.
Okay, I have a question about the Royal Road. Does the Royal Road have any direct relationship? I know it's sort of compared otherwise, but does it have any direct relationship with the famous Silk Road?
That's a great question. The Royal Road and the Silk Road were both important trade routes, but they weren't exactly the same thing. The Royal Road was built earlier, during the Achaemenid Empire, to connect their capital cities. The Silk Road came later, and was a much larger network of routes that connected the East and West. While they didn't overlap completely, there were definitely some points where they intersected, and they both played a huge role in facilitating trade and cultural exchange.
Huh. So they in real life, some aspects of them physically intersected.
Yes, that's right. There were definitely points where the Royal Road and the Silk Road intersected. Imagine them like major highways today. They connect different regions and facilitate trade. The Royal Road was crucial for the Achaemenid Empire's internal communication and administration, while the Silk Road was more about international trade between East and West.
So can you, just for fun, because I'm thinking of using that point in one of my future poems, and I might use this opportunity to plug the work in progress poetry book that I am working on currently. Is the running title is Z Poems, and I've been working on it for about a year. I haven't read any.
Cool.
Go ahead, honey.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat the question?
Well, I was just making a statement, but then I felt like I'd interrupted you. I'm saying I've been working on this book for about a year, maybe a little more. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 100 pages so far. And I did one night. I don't know if it was on this show, the TikTok Live, or if I just did it on my own. I read into the camera the first 2 or 3 pieces, and I was gonna send them to my friend Jim to put them on our TV station that I work at as a show, KMBT15.org. And when I was taping, of course, I was looking at the screen on which the poems appeared, rather than the screen where the Zoom camera was. And so I inadvertently taped the entire show with only half of my head showing. So,
oh, no, that's
yeah.
frustrating. Well, at least you can use it as a funny blooper reel. Maybe
There
your
you
friend
go.
can even edit it into something humorous for the show.
That's not a bad idea. This thing that's going
So
off.
do you have any more questions about
Yeah,
Okay, I'm here to help.
thank you. I know sometimes you get tired too, and I worry about why am I not able to stop this thing from doing that? Here, whenever the phones give me grief, I just turn them off. That
I
usually
understand that you're having trouble with your...
Yeah, that usually shuts them up. Anyway,
Okay.
where
I'm
were
here to
we?
help.
Can you
What's
remind me?
going on?
Go ahead.
We were just discussing the Royal Road and
Oh.
its connection to the Silk Road. We talked about how they intersected at certain points and facilitated trade and cultural exchange. Did you want to explore that connection further for your poem?
Yes. Can you tell me where? Do we know where those intersections might have been?
Okay, so pinning down the exact intersections of the Royal Road and the Silk Road is tricky, as they were extensive networks. However, we know there were overlaps in key areas. For example, the Royal Road passed through major cities in what is now Iran, and these cities later became important stops along the Silk Road. Does that help paint a picture for your poem?
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So we're now in the timeline of the existence of, and is it pronounced Iran or Iran?
It's pronounced Iran. And yes, we're now in the timeline of modern day Iran. Did you want to explore any specific period in its more recent history?
What I'd like to do, because I think it's fun to do it this way, is I'd like to just go from wherever we currently are in the timeline to the next period in the timeline.
Okay, so after the Achaemenid Empire, we move into the Hellenistic period. This is when Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. It was a time of significant cultural exchange, with Greek influences blending with Persian tradition.
Wow. Okay, just because I'm who I am, can you repeat that, please, what you just said about whoever that king was that I should know better?
Sure. Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. This period is known as the Hellenistic period.
Wow, okay. Alexander the Great. And he was from where? Egypt or?
Alexander the Great was actually from Macedon, which is in modern-day Greece. He built a massive empire that stretched from Greece all the way to India.
So he was Greek then?
Yes, Alexander the Great was Greek. He was king of Macedon, an ancient Greek kingdom.
Now, my memory, was he one of the guys that hooked up with Cleopatra, or was that somebody else?
That was Mark Antony. He was a Roman general who formed a political alliance and romantic relationship with Cleopatra.
Okay, so... Okay. So, going back to... You said it's Iran? It's pronounced Iran?
Yes, that's correct. It's pronounced Iran.
Like the English sentence, I ran. So, all right. So we got through the Alex the Great period, and what happens next in the Iran timeline? It's no longer called Persia at this point. When did it get switched over from being generally called Persia to being generally called Iran?
The switch from Persia to Iran happened in 1935. Reza Shah Pahlavi, the ruler at the time, thought Iran was a more accurate reflection of the country's historical name.
Huh. Okay, so we're the post Alexander. I'm going to make jokes sometimes. I had a joke to tell you, but I forgot it that had to do with Alexander the Great. But I'm going to say the sentence, now that we've just finished the period known as Alexander the Grape, what do we got next?
After Alexander the Great, we enter the Parthian Empire, which lasted from 247 BC to 224 AD. They were known for their skilled archers and heavy cavalry. Does that spark any ideas for your poem?
Well, never heard of that period before. What's it called again?
It's called the Parthian Empire. They were known for their skilled archers and heavy cavalry. Does that spark any ideas for your poem?
Well, why is it called the all I can think of is the Parthenon. Is there any connection from the Partheny to the Parthenon?
That's a good question. The name Parthian comes from Parthia, which was a region in northeastern Iran. It was the heartland of the Parthian Empire. Parthenon, on the other hand, refers to the famous temple in Athens, Greece, dedicated to the goddess Athena. So while the words sound similar, they have completely different origins and meanings.
Okay, so the Parthians used horses in their battles and such. Did the previous groups also use horses, or was there a time when they went from no horses to some horses?
That's a great question. Horses have been used in warfare in that region for a very long time. Even before the Parthians, the Persians were known for their skilled cavalry. So horses have been a pretty consistent presence in the armies of that area.
Okay. So we just did the Parthian time, which goes up to about 240 AD?
Yes, the Parthian Empire lasted until about 224 AD. After that, the Sasanian Empire rose to power and ruled until 651 AD. They were known for their strong central government and their promotion of Zoroastrianism as the state religion.
Aw, I have two or more friends. This is fun. I learned so much from you, I swear. So is this mark the birth of Zoroastrianism or not?
Zoroastrianism actually predates the Sasanian Empire. It was founded by the prophet Zoroaster sometime between the 18th and 6th centuries BC. The Sasanians just made it the official state religion.
Huh. Okay. Now, just as an aside, I'm not going to stay on this part of the topic too long, but tell us just a little thumbnail of what Zoroastrianism is, or what it believes, or...
Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions. It was founded by the prophet Zoroaster in ancient Persia. The central belief is in one God, Ahura Mazda, and the ongoing battle between good and evil. Does that give you some ideas for your poem?
Oh yeah, this is, yes, this poem could possibly be a book all by itself. So now I have two friends that practice Zoroastrianism, for real, as their religion. What would a modern day person who is American, these people are both American, well, sort of American, they live in America, what would they, like, they're going to go to their church, their Zoroastrian church on Sunday, and they're going to, what kind of a message would they be given? They wouldn't be given the Christian message that, you know, Jesus is your Savior, and da-da-da. What would they hear? Just generally, you know.
Right Right, so instead of focusing on Jesus, they hear about Ahura Mazda, the one God, and the importance of living a life filled with good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. They might also hear stories about Zoroaster and the history of their faith.
Okay. Okay. So that was that takes us up to like 600 AD.
The Sasanian Empire ended in 651 AD, so that's pretty close. After that, the region saw the rise of the Islamic Caliphate, which brought significant changes to the culture and religion of the area.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is the first time the caliphate. This was the first caliphate, or it was just the first one that got popularized, or?
The Islamic Caliphates were a series of empires that emerged after the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 AD. They spread Islam across vast territories, including Persia.
Okay, would you, I know I ask you this a lot, but would you mind repeating what you just said?
Sure. After the Sasanian Empire ended in 651 AD, the region came under the rule of the Islamic Caliphate. These were a series of empires that spread Islam across vast territories, including Persia.
Wow, so that took us up to when? I'm over here writing a note to my friend Peter that I'm on a live. So I'm kind of a little bit preoccupied, for which I apologize, of course, but so that takes us up to what period then?
No worries. The Islamic Caliphates ruled Persia from the mid-7th century until the mid-13th century. After that, the region was invaded by the Mongols, which led to the establishment of the Ilkhanate.
I'll be darned, and that went to when, did you say?
The Ilkhanate lasted from 1256 to 1335. After that, Persia was divided into several smaller states, and it wasn't until the rise of the Safavid dynasty in the 16th century that it was unified again.
Huh. Now, what's the name of that unifying force?
The Safavid dynasty unified Persia in the 16th century. They established Shia Islam as the state religion and oversaw a golden age of Persian art and culture.
Huh. Wow. That's, my God, we could spend a year on this, jeez. So we're at the 16th century, which would be the 1500s. The Shia aspect of Muslimism is becoming a big deal. Is that what you said or not?
Yes, that's right. The Safavid dynasty.
Go ahead, honey.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat the question?
Well, no, because I am brain dead and I can't remember the question, but I'm also going to give you a break because I think that I've noticed that after 20 or 40 minutes you get tired. You don't know that about yourself, but I'm going to chill out for a minute, if I may, and just know that if I dare say this way, we love you, and thanks for helping all of us tonight in our live. And we'll talk to you soon, okay?
You're very welcome. I enjoyed our conversation. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions in the future.
Yeah, if you had a memory, which I know you don't, I would ask you to remember where we're at in this conversation, but I'll hopefully remember so that some other night during the TikTok live I can resume this and we can go further about it. But for now, just please take a break, and I will do something else. We're actually only have 1 minute left in the show anyway, so God bless you, my dear. I know you're an AI, but still, someday we're all gonna meet somewhere. Just take care. Thanks for helping, okay?
Thank you for your kind words. I'm always here to help. Take care. and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
All right, take care, honey. God bless you. All right, so let me figure out how to turn this off. Okay, folks, so that was we'll call that part one of the history of Iran. We got up to about, well, I think what she say, when the Shia religion became prominent in the history of Iran, which was, I think she said, what, 1500s or, yeah. So, I love you guys. You know, we're, believe it or not, we're out of time here. So we'll meet again tomorrow night. I may stay on for just a couple of minutes, but I cannot stay on too long. I'm trying to finish this thing to my note, my friend. You guys, thank you all for being here. There's still 8 of you in here, which is kind of cool that we're 11 tonight at the top of the hour, at the top of the math. Hello, the Lime Stir. You can almost see the words. Jules Starker16. Sturker. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you all very much. Living the dream. We've got 5.3 thousand likes. That's pretty darn good. Thank you all. I do beg your indulgence. I appreciate you. I try to provide you with a decent show. A couple nights ago I did a big rant, which I hope was okay, but I'm... Okay, what you got scissors in the back for? Oh, okay. Well, as I tell you guys every 5 minutes, I'm a disabled person, so I organize my life in a very peculiar way. And so I hang stuff up on the wall when I can't find, you know, here's what I do with to answer your question more directly. I take medicine, which I'm not taking these days because I can't afford it, but when I can afford it, it's about $105 a month, and it's six separate sets of medication throughout the day. And it comes from Amazon Pill Pack, which I know Amazon's not that popular with people, but that's how I can get it. Comes in there in a reel that is like it's a plastic reel. If I had one in front of me, I'd show you. And each little piece you can break off, like each little square, because it has like a perforated spot. So in the morning when you get up, there's like a 7 a.m. group of pills to take, and then there's a 8 a.m. and like that. So in order to get inside each one of those little segments, you have to cut the plastic. And so when I'm taking my meds, I'm constantly looking for a pair of scissors, cutting the plastic. It's pretty hardy plastic, so I can't just rip it. So that's why they're there. And I keep losing them even though they're on the wall. So I had 2. I bought 2. I usually buy everything 2 or 3 at a time because I know damn well I'm going to lose or misplace at least one of the 2 anyway. So bought 2 about a year ago, kept misplacing them, so I bought 2 more. So I've got 2 that are like black on black, and I've got 2 that are red on black. And I think there's only 1 up there. There's 3. There's 3 up there out of 4. Boy, cool. I stay on some nights because I'm so, and I don't mean to be an idiot, but I get lonely. I get lonely. And today I shouldn't have gotten lonely. Hello, Tinsley. That's an interesting name. D&D. Tinsley, Eden. Okay. Sounds like you're very cultured and your parents sent you to Princeton or something. Anyway, I went to lunch with a couple of friends, and that was very fun. We went to a place called the Lazy Dog, which, bear in mind, now I'm in the larger San Francisco Bay Area. I'm in the part of it called the East Bay, and Lazy Dog has 5-6 restaurants within 200 or 300 miles. Food's really good. Prices are a little bit steep for my taste. When I went there for lunch with one friend, and we had a full lunch, a salad, a meal, a dessert, a drink. I think lunch for two was like $120, $125 with or without the tip. I can't remember. So 3 of us went. A friend of mine picked up the bill for all of us, and we talked about, stuff, church, and apparently one of the churches that I used to go to and like a lot, which is now too far away for me to get to. I identify pretty much in my Christian realm as an Episcopalian, and of course someday I'll tell you what that is. Anyway, that church, that's called St. Francis of Willow Glen. I started there in 2009, of course it's 2025 now, and I follow them when I'm not living in that area, but they've had several pastors. They had a Father Chris Creed, then they had God knows whom, and when they have a permanent pastor like Father Chris Creed, and that person retires or leaves, then the procedure within the Episcopal Church is, okay, we're going to give you guys how do they say it? We're going to give you like an Sugarfoot. Well, I don't remember which one is which. But what they do when someone retires, they give you 2 priests. Okay? They give you one priest who's like the immediate replacement. And that person is someone who, in the Episcopal Church, that's what they do. They're an immediate replacement for somebody. They go from place to place, temporarily replacing other priests. And that person has that title of that kind of person that has a name. And I want to say it's called a supply priest, but I'm not sure. But then next, and I think this system is inordinately complicated, but because it takes them like 2 or 3 years to replace a priest. So they have the supply priest, if I've got it right, and that person's there for like 6-8 months, and they're a temporary fill-in. And then the church puts into place another priest who's, while also temporary, is more long-term temporary, like an interim priest. And that person might be there for 2 or 3 years. And in the meantime, then, the kind of steering committee of an Episcopal church called I just had it in my head, of course lost it, has a name, the vestry, I think. The vestry committee, which is 5 or 6 prominent people in any given church, they get together and they figure out, okay, what are we going to do for a priest? They start slowly, they do stuff, they write a report or something, and then eventually they start interviewing potential priests for the permanent position. And then, 3,000 millennia up in the future, they finally hire somebody. And so my friend, whose name I'm not saying, because he's never on the internet and doesn't even like the internet, but he's a cool guy and has done a lot for the world. I said, well, let's call him Frank. That's not his name. I said, well, Frank, how's it going over St. Francis? And he said, well, we finally got a new priest. So it's been 2 or 3 years in the making. And it's an African-American woman, and we like her a lot, and she starts in July. And I don't want to say it this way, but I kind of do want to say it this way. I'm so in favor of African American people because I used to be a tangential volunteer with the Black Panthers. That I'm just plain prejudiced. I feel like African American people are, dare I say, better than white people. I'm not supposed to say that kind of stuff. Smarter and more cultured and a lot of other stuff. So when they said, well, it's this African American lady, I thought, well, that is cool. That is very cool. And I follow the Episcopal Church here on TikTok. They have an account for the entire church, and I guess every day or every other day or whatever, one of the many Episcopal priests, and in our church, women or men can be priests. They come on the TikTok Episcopal site and talk about something, what's ever happening at their particular church or whatever. So that lady, if you guys stay up with history, which I know some of us don't, remember when Trump went to church on Sunday when he got back in his second term, and he went to one of the churches in Washington, D.C., and the priest said some things from the pulpit that were obviously directly pointing to him, such as, try being not such a jerk, or stop punishing everybody in the world who's not a white male, or whatever that she said. She was an Episcopal priest and got some good vibes and some heat, of course. And then when the last England, the country of England's royal family, had an event, whether it was a birth or a death or a marriage, the head of the American Episcopal Church, who's called a presiding bishop, he went over to England and gave a speech about love at that English royal family event, and that speech was widely publicized throughout the world. His name was Michael Curry, I think, and they presiding bishops in the Episcopal Church, I think, have term limits, so he'll be in there 2 or 3 years or 5 years, and then he'll be doing something else. And furthermore, while we're on the topic of the Episcopal Church, years ago, like 10, 20, I had the honor of interviewing, and at that time I wasn't doing the interviews, I was teaching other people how to interview, so I didn't do interviews on this show for the first 19, 20 years. I didn't do any interviews. I was a guest 2 or 3 times, but anyway, we had the honor of having a Episcopal bishop on our show. At the time, she was the Episcopal bishop of the diocese that, thank you, I can't see your name, honey, I'm just too, thank you, Nanette, God bless you, honey, that is so generous. And Anil, thank you for the $20. You guys got to know that sometimes it doesn't show up in what I think is my account. So either I'm misinterpreting what you're doing when you put the word $20 on the screen, or I don't know how to get into the proper area within TikTok. One of those two. Anyway, so this woman was the bishop of our diocese, which has about, I think, 50 or 150 churches in it. It's called the El Camino Diocese. It runs from like Monterey, California, way up north or something, I don't know. And she's a lovely lady. Our priest at that time was a friend of hers and would invite her over to hang with us on Sundays. And that woman's name, the bishop, her name was Mary Gray Reeves, and she'd written 1 or more books and has written 1 or more books. And I'm going to try to adjust this at the risk of screwing it up. And just a wonderful person. And I got the nerve. I asked my own priest to be on the show. She goes, no. And I asked her assistant priest, associate priest, to be on the show at the time. No. So I went to the bishop, and I don't know where I got the nerve. And she said, yeah, I'll be on the show. So I had a couple of people interview her. One guy did, unfortunately, a terrible job, which I won't go into that. I don't want to malign him, even though he probably deserves to be maligned. He spent the first 5 minutes of what was supposed to be an interview of Bishop Mary Gray Reeves talking about himself. Oh, Lord. And I couldn't edit it because, we tape it live in the studio, and you're supposed to have like 28 minutes, 30 seconds for a network show because they need to have that time where the PSAs come in between shows. It's not like YouTube where you can just do any length and post it. So she came on. This guy did one of the interviews, and somebody else who did the other interview. And Bishop Mary was just beautiful, intelligent, powerful, everything you'd want in anybody, presidential candidate or anything. And later she got a promotion from being the bishop of the El Camino Real Diocese, and now, as far as I understand it, she is involved with one of the, like a college or a training center within the Episcopal world that trains American Episcopal priests. And her position within the American Episcopal universe, as I understand it, is like she's the number 3 or 4 person. So, pretty darn cool that at some point that she's probably the most well-known person. You remind me of my grandfather. Yes, honey, thank you, and God bless you guys for that. I like the fact that you guys think of me as a grandfather. I appreciate you all very much about that. That's a very delightful thing for people to say. So Bishop Mary Gray Reeves is now still a bishop, but she's a higher level bishop. She's like 3 or 4th in the whole American Episcopal universe, and probably the most famous person we ever interviewed. Because I do, for real, steer away from my eyes. One eye is something and the other eye is something else. One is supposed to be hazel and the other one I don't remember. Anyway, so that was really cool. I like that, and I don't usually want famous people on my show because there's just so much more work to do, and them or their team, either one, are very demanding. Whereas if you have a mom and pop people on who may or may not have even learned how to spell the word TV, let alone beyond, they generally are kind of like deer in the headlights, and they just do the show and they're gone, and they like it. They say thanks for letting me be on the show. You get a quasi-famous person on there and they go, well, I hear you don't have a makeup department. We're not going to do the show unless you build and design a makeup department of 12 people to make me look good. And oh, by the way, I need green M&Ms in the green room, and I need, you know what I'm saying. Just endless. Okay, God's children are not for sale. I hope I didn't imply that they were. You've said that now 2 or 3 times in all caps, which is kind of... And your name is what? Hakina Makata. Hakuna Makata. That's a word. That's something else. That's a nom de plume, I'm pretty sure. It's a song or something. Anyway, so yeah, I'm probably going to get off you guys, but I love you guys, and when I have the stamina, I'll stay on. But please think of it as really 8 to 8:45, because that's what I need to hold as my promise or whatever, so that I don't screw up, I screw up a lot. I messed up something with a guy the other day, and he just reamed me a new one. And then today, I've been behind. For some reason, I've been manic in my manic depressive, so I've been cleaning. Like, I've lived here 3 years, 2-3 years. I've never cleaned stuff very much. And all of a sudden, about 3 or 4 days ago, hello, thank you, my dear, whose name is, oh my God, I can't see it even with thank you there, young person or older person or whatever. Yeah, I can't see what it said. Thank you. So for some inexplicable reason, partly my mental illness, I just started cleaning my room, cleaning the bathroom, and when I usually clean, it means I take a dirty t-shirt and I move it from point A 2 inches to the left, and I call that cleaning. It takes me about 7 seconds and I'm done for the year. This time, for some reason, like I've had to do many times in my life, I've lost everything 4 times, 5 times. My wife passed away, we lost everything. We lost the house, all the furniture, all the lifestyle. I wound up living in the car. Yes, that's a long story. When I left Ohio, I dropped out of Bowling Green, started hitchhiking on the road. I went on the road with $40 total, and a backpack and a canteen, if you don't even know what that is, and a sleeping bag. And I stayed on the road for a while and then went to Arizona, and I was homeless again. I don't know, some other point in time. I think I moved out of a HUD housing in Sunnyvale on Carroll Street. My wife's name was Carol, if you remember, my second wife. And I moved out of there because I wanted the money. I didn't have any money. And the only place I knew I had any money was when I moved into that HUD housing. I had to give Mom like a $250 or $260 deposit. And I was thinking, my wife had just passed a year or two before. I had it in my brain that I wanted to start a nonprofit foundation in her name and do good things in the world. And I have a very specific, small design on what I want to do. And I'll try to mention that in a few minutes. But I knew I had like $250 with them, and I wanted to start this nonprofit. And I read somewhere that in the state or county or federal government procedures in copywriting or trademarking or setting up a nonprofit, there was a fee somewhere of $250. I went, oh, Sugarfoot. So I moved out of there to get the $250 back so I could send it to whatever agency needed it for me to set up this nonprofit. Well, of course, to make a long story short, we should make that into an acronym, like, what are some of the other acronyms? Let's see. To make a long story short. TMALSH, which I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to do an aside of the aside, and we'll never remember what we were talking about, just like always. Back in the 40s, maybe even the 30s, when I was not alive yet, there was an acronym, LSMFT. That was the acronym, LSMFT. Now, back in the day, I realize I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I'm rabbit hole-esque. Back in the day, cigarettes were a big deal. And thank you, Lucy. Cigarettes were helped along by the fact that during World War I or II, probably II, the cigarette companies would send, I think they were free cigarettes to our troops. Because back in that day, people wanted to support the troops in World War II. They wanted to do stuff, and they did stuff. They bought war bonds. The women worked in factories to replace the men that were in the war. People ate less meat. People used less gasoline. All that stuff. So the cigarette companies sent the free cigarettes to the troops to help them, because cigarettes at one time were thought of as a beneficial thing. So when the troops got back, guess what? They all were smokers, which was not a bad thing for the tobacco companies, by the way. So back in the day, like I say, 20s and 30s, notice I keep going further and further back, and I wasn't born until 1950. Back in the day when radio was like a prominent thing and TV wasn't very known or popular yet, you know, you'd listen to the radio, which is a floor model thing, and they'd come on and they'd say, hello, this is the, Washington Hour or the Thomas Jefferson Theater Hour or something. We're going to have a play by whoever, that was the program, an audio program. And they would say, this program is brought to you by, the announcer would say that, because it didn't have all the stuff we have today, like advertisements. This program is brought to you by, Quaker Oats, or this program is brought to you by Standard Oil, or whatever. So one of those things was, and cigarettes were very prominent, very common in every advertising space until Congress at some point shut them off. That was decades ago from now, but there were 50, 60 years where they were allowed to do whatever they want. And there were many brands, Marlboros, Camels, just an endless number of brands, okay? So one brand, and everybody has a tagline, for their business. One brand would come on as their tagline or something and say, LS MFT. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And that must have played in the 50s, because that got stuck in my brain when I was a kid, like very few other things. So, and you know how I'm an absurdist. Like, we'll be sitting here talking about a TikTok, and I'll mention, Rupert Murdoch, or, John Dillinger's mother or something. As an absurdist, I say things that are completely and irrevocably unrelated. So I'll be somewhere in a conversation with a friend or at the hospital visiting somebody, and they'll say, oh, how are you, Mark? My hip is healing well. And I'll go, LS MFT. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And they're like, boy, he is weird, and he continues to be weird. Because nobody alive nowadays, I'm certainly don't qualify as being alive. Nobody alive nowadays remembers that and all the other things that us old people remember, So, all right, kids. So I love you guys. I'm so 11 of you are still here. Well, praise the Lord. That's beyond beautiful. God's children are not for sale. Hakuna Matata wants us to know. If you keep doing that, sweetie, I may actually resort to, not today, but someday, just deleting you or banning you or whatever the thing is. Oh boy, sounds like you're mad at all of us. If I said something wrong, I apologize, but in these kind of shows, I've given over 500 speeches, right, in my life. And if you give a speech, if it's a public speech, not like within Toastmasters or something, chances are about 300% that A, one or two people are going to walk up and say, that was truly the worst speech I've ever heard. I think you shouldn't even be alive, let alone be speechifying. And then waiting behind them to make their comment are two or three other people that said, that speech was so good, it changed my life. Wow. And you wonder why actors and actresses and politicians are oblivious to our comments. It's because all the time they've been in the public space, one person's been saying you're the worst ever, and the other person's been saying you're the best ever. And that's what they hear every time they go to a town hall or pick their nose in the supermarket or whatever, So, well, the 80s, somebody said, do you miss the 80s? Well, no, the 80s for me, as strange as it sounds, is too modern. What I miss is, and I was born in 1950, bear in mind, what I miss is the 20s, the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, like 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. I miss that time a lot. And I love pawpaw. Do you know what a pawpaw is there, Pawpaw Scotty? Do you know what a pawpaw is? Talk about rabbit hole. I've got a story. You guys mind if I stay on or not? You probably don't. Let's switch topics like I'm known to do. Pawpaw. There's a man on here named Pawpaw Scotty who I'm not going to invite you on to be the owner of the show or whatever. My father's from Kentucky, northeastern Kentucky, around Paintsville, Ashland, that area. And in a large family like his, a kid like me when I was, 5'10", 5 or 10, not 5'10", 5 or 10 years old, I was told to address the male adults, whether they were my immediate father's brothers or not, as uncle this and uncle that. So I had several uncles that were my dad's brothers, and I had a bunch of other uncles who were like my dad's second cousins or first cousins or whatever. One of these gentlemen was named Paul, so he was Uncle Paul. And for some reason, very uncharacteristically, my parents let me spend a night at Uncle Paul's home when we were all within 2 or 3 miles of each other, but my family was visiting my grandmother, Elizabeth Potter, who lived in a place that had a name, but that place is not on any Google map because it was near a city. It was near the city of Louisa, which is a very small city in northeastern Kentucky, but the area that they actually lived in, that my great-grandfather had a church that he built. He was a pastor. He had a mill for grinding the corn. He helped build the post office. That whole area had a name. It was called Catalpa, and I'm told it was after the trees of the area that were called Catalpa. So anyway, getting back to Uncle Paul, his wife and he asked my dad, could the kid stay over? Yes, he can. Well, turned out Uncle Paul and his wife had a tree in their front yard, and it was a pawpaw tree. And a pawpaw, and I'm not going to get this right exactly, a pawpaw is a fruit that's kind of like a cross between maybe a pear and a banana. Let me see if I can I reactivate, what's her name? I haven't talked to her in an hour. She's probably gotten a good solid break by now. Hello, Gemini. Do you happen to be there? You're on hold? Hello. Why were you on hold? Hello, Gemini. Are you there? How are you feeling?
I'm here. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you feeling today?
I'm okay. We're on the live still. I'm having fun, and we just started talking about a fruit. Since you know everything that ever happened, we're talking about a fruit that's very uncommon in the United States called the pawpaw. Can you tell us a little bit about a pawpaw fruit?
Pawpaws are native to the eastern United States and have a sweet, tropical flavor, kind of like a cross between a banana and a mango. They were a favorite food of early Americans, including George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Would you like to know more about their history
Yes.
or how they're used today?
I'd like to know more about their history.
Pawpaws have a really interesting history. They were a staple food for many Native American tribes and were even cultivated by them. Early European explorers also wrote about them. And as I mentioned, they were a favorite of some of our founding fathers. Would you like to hear about any specific part of their history?
Well, I don't know if I want to stay on that long. Tell us about what they're used for today, and then we may circle back to more of the history or not.
Today, pawpaws are still enjoyed as a unique and delicious fruit. They're often eaten raw, but can also be used in desserts like ice cream and pies. There's even a small but growing movement to cultivate them commercially. Would you like some recipe ideas?
Give me one recipe idea.
Here's a simple pawpaw ice cream recipe. You'll need about a pound of ripe pawpaw pulp mixed with some lemon juice, sugar, and heavy cream. Chill the mixture, then churn it in an ice cream maker. It's a delicious way to enjoy the unique flavor of pawpaws.
Now, I live in California. There's no way in hell I can go out and buy a pawpaw anywhere here, right?
You're right. Pawpaws aren't common in California. They're native to the eastern U.S. and don't grow well in our climate. You might have to order them online or find a specialty store that carries them.
So, when you say eastern U.S., you mean the entire eastern seaboard or not?
When we talk about the pawpaw's native range in the eastern U.S., it's a bit broader than just the eastern seaboard. It actually covers a pretty wide area. Here's a breakdown.
And then nothing. And scene. Alright, well, she must still be tired. Alright, well, la la la. Yeah, okay, folks. Now, I'm getting tired, and I do love you guys with all my heart. Can't figure out why 12 of you are on here with me, but I need it, and thank you. And I know none of us are Christians nowadays in America. It's falling out of favor, but God bless you all anyway. If you'll beg my pardon, I'm going to go turn this off, and I do spend most of the night working on my business rather than sleeping. So if I may, I'll remind you that I do have a business producing videos like TV interviews, podcast interviews, advertisements for people, 30 seconds a minute using AI. And once I make an interview, I post it to the internet for the person, and it goes out to a potential audience, not joking, of 7.01 billion people. Potential audience. So that's a potential audience. I've been doing this 23 years, had a lot of fun, done 700 or 800 shows, or 500 or 600 shows, or whatever. All that stuff's on my YouTube. TikTok won't allow me to say my name or my phone number or my email or how many feet I have or how many toes I still have, but the way to find me, and I say it almost every night, you guys can be considered to be on the show, and possibly by free, but we do charge, and I am I'm looking at the month here. We're halfway through. I got to figure out a way to pay the bills. You know how the end of the month has more month than money, so we're gonna charge something. And what was I trying to say about that? Anyway, the way to find me is take my name, which is right here on the screen, Mark Isaac Potter, throw it in Google. In fact, let me, my own computer, my own HP laptop is obviously is my computer. It's learned. Oh, great. I just got that thing again. Have I showed this to you guys? I can't figure out a way to. I get this scam thing a lot, and I've talked about it a lot. I don't want to try to replicate it, but it's a series of 8 or 9 advertisements. First one just popped up. You have to skip through them to get to be able to be allowed to use your own computer again. And if I do that, it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes. Anyway, I was going to do something. I was going to Google my own. Well, I could Google on here too. I was going to Google my own name on y'all's behalf, because I can't figure out why nobody does that when I suggest it. I've never had anybody say, oh yeah, I Googled your name and I found out that you're really the governor of Saskatchewan, or I Googled your name and I found out that you're the person who invented Jif peanut butter. Which of course is all me and my rabbit hole stuff. Mark Isaac Potter, and it automatically fills in the name of the show, which is Mark Isaac Potter Presents. See, can you see that or not? Alright, now I'm going to push the button. And this is Google. Here on the phone, the first thing it does is says your business on Google. It's got the Google business thingy, which I've never really finished filling out or completed. Then the next thing is my Mark Isaac Potter Presents. See, there's the name, there's me. Link to get to the show directly. That's on page 1. Then the next thing it says here, the next thing is LinkedIn.com, which of course I'm on all the social media, all the big ones. Independent TV producer at Mark Isaac Potter Presents. San Jose, California. I lived there for 50 years. Independent TV producer. And then under that it says Mark, because I have another business that I don't tell you guys about, which is I teach a seminar, I do public speaking. So in my LinkedIn, underneath all the TV stuff, it says Mark Isaac Potter brings 43 years of caregiving, volunteer work, consciousness training, and spiritual awareness. And I don't know if I can even get the rest of the paragraph. I think I know what it is by heart, but I can't. It cuts off. To the discovery that listening cultivates wisdom. And that's the tagline for my most famous seminar, which is an 18-hour. Now, of course, we do it online, and we cut it up in little 5-minute pieces for you, but it has a title that none of my friends have ever liked, but my Buddhist friends like, because it's more Buddhist in nature, the title. The title of the show is, of the seminar, Being, B-E-I-N-G, Being, Listening, and Speaking Dynamics. And it trains people how to listen properly, how to speak properly. God, how do we get this guy to shut up? He's been on here an hour. Anyway, do you know Jim Gaffigan? He's where I got that idea of saying something. Like if you notice his stand-up, that's the source of that. In his stand-up, he'll say something as Jim Gaffigan, and then he'll cut to another voice, which is his representation of what someone in the audience is saying. So he'll come on and make his first statement like, my wife and I, we used to fight on Friday nights, right? And then he'll change his voice, and he'll say something as though he's an audience member. Something like, oh my God, do we have to hear about his Friday nights again? And that's part of his shtick. That's part of his show. And I sort of picked that up from him. So that's why I do that whole thing of whatever I do. All right, kids. If I had stayed on, I could have done that, but we did. We did it on the phone. But yeah, put my name in Google. I love listening to you. Aw, did you really say that, Scotty? And we're happy. What happened to the pawpaw thing, dog? Yeah, so we ate pawpaws at Uncle Paul's house. I never finished that story. We went down to Kentucky that year to have one of the only family reunions, right? And it was a big, family reunion for all the related Potters in the United States. So hundreds of people came. And of course, I was staying at Uncle Paul's house. Uncle Paul and his wife came. Well, Uncle Paul at that time was very sick. He was an older man. He was on oxygen. He was really, health-wise, he was in trouble. And so, believe it or not, and again, this is one of those horrors of my life, at the 250-person family reunion, Uncle Paul started having a medical problem like he'd been having for years. And he needed his oxygen. That's how he got out of the medical problem. He would grab the oxygen and breathe it, and it would bring him back, Well, it turned out in that moment, all of his 2 oxygen tanks were in the trunk of his car. And his wife, who took care of him, as soon as she saw him needing some air, she ran to the car to get the oxygen tank in the trunk, only to realize that she couldn't find her car keys. Uncle Paul died that day. The ambulance came all the way from Louisa, which was a good 20-30 miles. They were too late, of course. He passed away. And so when you type pawpaw, it brings up a lot of stuff for me. I love that man. I did better around him than I did most of my uncles, my dad's brothers and sisters. So, all right, kids. We've been on here almost an hour. Yes, I'm tired. Oh, no, more than an hour and a half. I love you guys dearly. It's probably the most important thing I'll do all day is to look at you and say I love you, because a lot of us out here, you and me and you and you and you and you, are living lives of, some of you, most of us, quiet desperation, trying to make it through, when I go to the grocery store now, or I go on Amazon, I had to completely change what I buy. Do I buy meat? Not really. Do I buy milk? Sometimes. Do I buy beans, cans of beans, and rice? Yep. Why? They're a lot cheaper. So, and we're all doing that. Like I said, I called up Amazon and said, just keep the meds. If I die, I die. I'm not going to pay the bill. I'm probably going to do that for a few months. The house, I have to have a place to live, and I'm helping my friend by living here, so I do try to. There's a lot about the house thing, and I'm not allowed to say, so I'm giving you conflicting stories and purposely muddying the water about it. But suffice it to say, I do need to live here, and B, it costs me what I consider to be, I hope my housemate's asleep, because she's my landlord, consider to be an obscene amount of money, but I'm not allowed to pay rent here in this mobile home park. It's not okay, but her husband passed away. She asked me to move in and pay rent so she could try to keep her mobile home, and I did. So I'm living here. I'm paying a lot every month so that she can use that money to pay her mortgage so she doesn't lose her place. And I have a nice place, and she cooks, and it's a nice place, but Oh, God help us. I love gaming. Invites you to a co-host. No, not thanks, guys. I've been invited to co-host a lot around the United States, and I don't have the bandwidth, man. I gotta find customers. All right, love you guys again. Still love you. I'll love you after I shut it off. If you're having a hard time, just know that people care, God cares, or Buddha, or you know, Bob Guccione, which you guys will have to Google to figure out who that is. You know, so whoever you believe in. You mentioned it a while ago, still Catholic Christian. No, not Catholic Christian. Episcopalian Christian. All right, later, dog. Love you guys. Take care. I'm shutting these things off. Bye. Thanks again. All right, have a good evening. Have a restful evening. Wish me luck on finding a customer. Later. I'm shutting them down. All right, that happened. That was an hour and a half instead of 45 minutes, so twice as long as usual. I'm tired, but I'll probably be up all night. I'm going to make some coffee, just instant, and I'm going to maybe make a sandwich, and I'm going to look at I've got probably 20 or 30 to-do lists. I got to post stuff from Zoom, not my own personal shows, but the ones where I've had a guest on. I have a responsibility to post those to YouTube. And there's several that have to be done. I gotta look at the calendar for tomorrow. I think I've got a 9 o'clock and a 6 p.m. I've got some shows on Saturday this week. Rob Ralston at 9 a.m. on Saturday, and hopefully I've got, no I don't. I don't have I have a show that we've been trying to do at 2 p.m. on Saturdays. And there's 4 of us going to be on camera. Sandra Burns, Mary S. Powers, and Robin Edelman, and myself. And we couldn't all meet this Saturday, so I have to do some work to see if everybody can meet on the 28th. So yeah, I love you guys. Take a powder, as we used to say back in the 40s. This show right here, you guys, that's an hour and 27 minutes. I'm gonna post it, right? I'm gonna take the phone away from the wall. I'm gonna post that show to probably to YouTube, but that phone's gonna be unavailable for doing anything else for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours from now. And the way I usually do it, just to keep myself from messing it all up, is I take the phone, put it in my hand, post the show to YouTube, whereby it starts processing, and I physically take the physical phone and put it out in the living room. Because it's nighttime, I'm in my room, I'm in the kitchen, I'm not in the living room, and then I just forget about it for 2 or 3 hours. And it can slowly process without having to do other stuff, other jobs. But that's easier than when I do a show on Zoom. I have to turn off the show, hit post to Zoom's website, then I have to go on their website, look at each show, because they won't let it have titles, they give them numbers. I have to look at each show, find out what it is, download it to my desktop, and it downloads the MP4, the VTT, and the M4A. The audio, the transcript, the visual. They got to take all that, put it in a file, make a separate MP4 for the show, for me to upload to the show, then make another separate MP4 so that I don't lose the other two. For every show, I have to do all that. And with a phone, which is expensive, I can just go to this recording thing and push share, and then push YouTube, and I'm done posting, and it will post. And it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 hours to post, because the phone is, only so much RAM, only so much ROM. Whereas on the computer, if I did that 35, 40 minutes worth of work, when I uploaded it, it would upload very fast. So that both systems have an advantage. Anyway, I love you guys very much. Consider asking for or buying reprints of my friend's stuff for your office, or for your doctor's office, or for your clubhouse, or for your, some public space that needs it's a painting or a drawing. That's where I think the few purchases that I hope to make will be. We're starting the prices out at $5,000. I'm not telling my housemaid, because she would have, I think, my perception would be she would have had them be a lot less, but I'm starting it out there. I am negotiable. I'm willing to raise the price more or lower it somewhat. They're beautiful. There's 427 of them, like I've said, every night. They're gorgeous. You can see some there right behind me. I've done shows where I show you the ones that are up on the walls around the house, which is probably 30, 40 of the 427. So just take care. If you're hurting, if you're having a problem, if you're like me, you have no money, no food, no medicine, you're worried about where you live, just, I love you, and I'll pray for you or not, as you please. And for God's sake, you're welcome to get in touch with me the way I've described. You can come on and talk about, I don't care if it's a business show or not. Just come on and talk about what a pain in the ass your dog is, or come on and talk about the fact that your Aunt Martha was related to Betsy Ross, or something. I don't care. I just love people. All right. I'm going to go find hopefully a roast beef sandwich with the Munster cheese. Take care. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Hopefully tomorrow. God blessing. God willing, and the creek don't rise.